Hi guys, how you going? Campbell here from Autodidactic Channel. Hope you're all having a glorious day. And today I wanted to take another look at the Arctic Circle and what is really going on up there, because it's one of these regions, you know, the same as the Antarctic. We are given no information about it. No one's allowed to go there. It's all bound off by military. Like literally, they have ships cruising so you can't get through there. And we have all these stories of lands up in the north, you know, up in the Arctic Circle. Lots of stories from sort of the 1500s into the 1600s, and then beforehand, you know, there's lots of stories of, you know, Mount Meru and Agartha and all these places. And just as a side note, it's said that it's inhabited, the lands there, by giants. So thought we'd have a bit more of a look at what's going on up here. So this is the Mercator Map. This is from the 1500s. And as you'll see with these maps, I showed a bit in the last video about the islands of Antigua, the water levels changing dramatically over the last 500 years. And so in this we actually have the land masses. Okay, so this is the Arctic Pole, North Pole. Over here we have, is it on this one? No, it must be another map. That's actually not the true North Pole. Here it is, I think. Yeah, the magnetic pole is here. Okay, so this is what is a lot of ancient cultures call Mount Meru. It's supposed to be a big magnetic mountain in the middle of the North Pole. Obviously this magnetic North Pole up here sets it off a bit, but you know, is this because things have changed over time? Is it coming back? Because a few years ago, if you remember, there was an airway, like an airport up in the northern reaches, and they actually had to repaint their landing strips because the lineup had changed. You know, the degrees that it was set on had changed. So that sort of, you know, puts to the Earth might have been moving, or things moving around on the Earth, or something like that. And here you'll see airport runway names shift with magnetic field. What? World Magnetic Model helps ensure accurate navigation for aviation. It says Earth's magnetic field is constantly changing, and while large-scale changes such as complete reversals of the magnetic field happen over several thousand years, or so we are told, smaller changes over shorter periods affect navigation, including aviation. This shifting magnetic field affects airports and airline operations and causes runway names to change. So, for example, Fairbanks International Airport in Alaska renamed runway 1L19R to 2L20R in 2009 when magnetic north shifted enough to mandate a change, and the airport operators know the World Magnetic Model. So basically what they're saying is, as far as navigation and what they've got set in their machines, all set out how the world is, how they fly around. Basically the map, you know, the Earth had shifted, so the map was no longer accurate. So they had to, I'm not sure what they're saying, renaming. I heard they were just repainting them, but I guess, yeah, I don't know. But basically it's all done because they were they're saying that the magnetic North Pole had shifted. And I just found this too. Fairbanks International Airport, construction 1949 to 1951. So it was built at the end of World War II. And what was happening in World War II? You know, obviously Germany, Hitler, the Nazis, and we have all these stories of them going down to Antarctica and finding technology, finding all types of stuff, underground cities, you know, flying machines, whatever you want to call them, you know, Vimana type things, and also up in the Arctic. And also just after this, we had Admiral Byrd come out on TV and say that there was heaps and heaps of land. So yeah, it was built after the war, just in that time. And again, why are they building it way up in the north? You know, like, who are they defending against? The Inuits? I mean, come on. So yeah, we have these 4 land masses and the 4 rivers, and these are mentioned in so many ancient texts. But out here, this island pops up a bit too. Greenland, not sure what it is, but it does show up. Now here again we have Greenland, and as you can see, that looks nothing like the Greenland that we see today at all. This is all the countries around, and just look how close some of them come to these inner lands. And look at this, California region, right up in the Arctic. Okay, and it's all mapped. They know where the mountains are, they know where the rivers are, they know where the forests and things are. Have Asia down here, this is Scythian, so this is all Tartaria. Tartar, I think they write Tartaria down here somewhere. But it's completely different to what we see today. And we have all these islands. I know there's still a lot of islands out there and archipelagos, but the size and shapes have really changed on them. This is Iceland and Friesland. And clearly Friesland is an island there. So I did have a few people mention about Friesland. Yes, Friesland is a part of Denmark today. That's because the water levels have changed. So if you look at this, you know, if there was land there, and this, I mean, look at Greenland. So for Greenland to look like what it does today, it looks like the water needs to have gone down, gone down, because Greenland is much bigger than this today. So that's why these, you know, Friesland is joined up to the mainland today. It wasn't back then. You know, there may have been the top bit was called Friesland. I'm not sure but it's connected now. But it wasn't. You know, everything's changed. And as you can see, this was all built out. We've got castles here. We've got castles all over Iceland, or cities, whatever you want to call them. And we have them up here as well in Greenland. And look how close that is to these land masses and the Arctic Circle. And if this was all ice-free, what's going on? Because clearly this was mapped. And another thing you'll find, I'll show you in another map. So this map, as you can see on this map, this is Greenland. And you'll notice it's not completely mapped. So what we have is here, all the way around, and they've done it properly. They've got all, you know, it's a good job. They've got all the inlets and everything all the way around up to here, and it stops. Now look at this. This is that other island I've mentioned, Greenland. I mean, they've done the inside of that island, haven't they? So why would you sail around a whole island and stop and just not do this bit? And as we can see in the middle here, there's no longer any land masses. Now we have scary monsters by the looks of it. You know, don't go there. So was this actually joined up to one of the land masses? Is that why we're not shown it? You know, the same kind of thing down here. They sort of go really intricately, map all this, and they just leave these big bits. So what was going on there? But this one, you know, especially into the center, what are they hiding? So what is the story of Greenland? It says, Eric the Red founded a small Norse colony on Greenland in AD 986. Although the North and the Thule people seem not to have interacted until the 13th century, the Norse colony was abandoned in the early 15th century, a time when a general climatic cooling trend probably made subsistence farming unsustainable there. So what is that saying? That's saying in the 15th century, the ice started to come back in and it started to get frozen again. Okay, which would lock off access to the lands beyond that ice. So European fishermen built seasonally used base camps on Greenland's southern coasts during the 16th and 7th century. So by that time they could only subsist on the southern coast, they're saying. 1721, a permanent Danish-Norwegian colony was founded. So here, you know, we're suddenly at 1700. Eric the Red in 986, you know, it suddenly jumps 500 years. Another 200 years, another 100 and 200 years. Now, they're not telling us much about what's going on in Greenland, are they? So the region's indigenous people, from the first treated as full citizens of the kingdom, epidemics of European diseases struck almost immediately, though, killing as many as a third of the people on the island. In 1776, the Danish government granted a trade monopoly to the Royal Greenlandy Trading Company with the restrictions of contact to outsiders. I'll read that again, with the contact with outsiders. Losses to epidemic diseases were greatly reduced. Denmark retained a trading monopoly with Greenland until 1951. Okay, so did you hear that, guys? So basically they've said they've got this region, it's full of a people. They're actually called the Thule people. And yeah, the story is that when they got introduced to the mainland gave them diseases, epidemics, pandemics. Have we heard this before, guys? Killing as many as a third of the people. And so what do? They quarantine them. Okay, granted a trade monopoly with the restriction of contact with outsiders. So what they're saying is, oh no, these people, you know, if they get in contact with outsiders, they'll die because we've all got nasty diseases that their immune systems can't handle. So they're not allowed to contact the outsiders. They can just trade with them. Interesting, interesting. So the Thule culture was a prehistoric culture that developed along the Arctic coast in northern Alaska, possibly as far east as the Amundsen Gulf. Starting about 900 CE, it spread eastward rapidly and reached Greenland by the 12th century. It continued to develop in central areas of the Arctic and Canada, and cultural communication persisted between these eastern Thule and the western Thule of Alaska for approximately 400 years. So they're saying that it's a people and they got split and they just ended up on opposite sides of the Arctic Circle. Now, does that sound like another possibility might be they were the people from the Arctic Circle? Who, when, you know, maybe they were on outer islands or whatever, and when the freeze and the ice came in, they got pushed out a bit and they couldn't get back in. Because they seem to be described as a different people. They haven't been in contact with Europeans. Okay, so because the Thule people resided in the Arctic, their economies were oriented towards hunting, settlements, and permanent houses built of whalebone, skin, and sod. Some of them subterranean, were located near the seashore. Snow houses were built during the winter journeys inland to hunt terrestrial animals, and skin tents were probably used for the same purpose in summer. They hunted whales, seals, walrus, all this kind of stuff, traded, you know, musk, made kayaks. So they sound a lot like Inuits as well. Thule art includes small carved ivory or wooden figures possibly used for magic or religious purposes, or as game pieces. So that they're onto it, right? They know exactly what they're used for. Thule culture was highly developed and specialized and is considered to be the immediate antecedent to contemporary Arctic cultures. So they're saying it's the father or mother culture of all Arctic cultures. Thule people developed many implements and weapons that greatly influenced later Arctic cultural innovations. The Thule culture disappeared from central Canada in the 15th century. There it is again, 15th century. Probably because of climatic cooling that occurred during that time. The so-called medieval cool period, 1250 to 1500. I have mentioned that before. Now that's pretty much been wiped from our history books. It's not taught at all anymore. As soon as this whole global warming, you know, anthropomorphic global warming came in, they stopped teaching that. Because why? Well, because if it got cool and we had a mini ice age 500 years ago, then that means we've been warming ever since, right? And if you look at the stats anyway, we're actually going back into another cool period. And here's a bit more on Thule from Wikipedia. Thule is the farthest northern location mentioned in ancient Greek and Roman literature and cartography. Modern interpretations have included Orkney, Shetland, northern Scotland, the island of Samara, in Estonia and the Norwegian island of Smola. So they're not really sure what it was. And also Scotland is actually fairly close, fairly high up and close to the Arctic region as well. And it has a group of islands called the Orkney Islands. So Scotland, I'll just show you. This is Scotland here. They have this group of islands, Orkney and then Shetland Islands and things, where Shetland ponies came from. And Shetland ponies, as a side note, are small horses, as we all know. And what they found years ago, I don't know the actual date, but they found an island up in the Arctic, and it had mini mammoths on it, like woolly mammoths. But they were like less than half the size of the normal ones, because they'd been stuck on this island and couldn't, get enough food or whatever. And they'd, been quarantined there, and they shrank in size. So it looks like, all of this was probably joined up, and that they could move around. And then as waters have risen and things, they've been isolated. But yeah, so here's Scotland, and as you can see, this is Shetland, and look, this is Scandinavia. This is Finland, just here. So it's right there. This is Greenland, Iceland. So Scotland's right there as well. So Scottish Reich. Anyone? By the late Middle Ages and early modern period, the Greco-Roman Thule was often identified with the real Iceland or Greenland. Sometimes Ultima Thule was a Latin name for Greenland when Thule was used for Iceland. So again, they're just switching names around. Like they either don't know, or they're just purposely confusing everything, which is probably the truth. Obfuscating the truth, as they love to do. And as you'll see down here, Thule has given its name to the northernmost United States Air Force airfield, Thule Air Base in northern Greenland, which I covered briefly in my islands video. I'll just show you a quick map that I found. And this is it. This is the Carta Marina Septemrioling something. That basically means northern, if you see sept, which is interesting because it also means 7, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Here you can see we've got, I'm guessing this is Iceland, Islandia, and we have, castles, we have cities, everything's mapped out, ports, the whole lot. And down here we have Tile, which many people are saying is actually Thule. And you can see we've got, so it's not the best picture, it's not loading, but we've got castles here and other bits. And on all these, here's another island, Fair. Haven't heard of that one before. Again, castles, orchards and things. This one has been completely broken up into an archipelago, but you can see that looks like it's probably an island today. Not sure which one. This is Norwegia, so Scandinavia, Finland kind of thing here. Is that Scotland? Yeah, this is Scotland. So it's not, north, it's all sort of in where the Channel Islands are now. And this is where they're saying that this Thule or Tile, an actual island called that might be. If we go back here, you'll see here Thule is shown here. So they don't even know what's going on. Here's a local stamp, 1936, saying Thule. There's Thule people, there's an island they're saying a Thule. They don't really know which one it is. There's all this confusion. And it's all linked with the Arctic region and the North Pole and peoples from there. And, as we saw, it looked like it was all blocked off in the 1500s when the temperatures, the little mini ice age set in and temperatures fell and we got the ice sheets building up and that blocked access. Now, you may recognize the name Thule. And I got a message on Facebook from Mickey C. Cheers, Mickey. And he sent me this photo, Thule Air Force Base in Thule, Greenland, which I covered. And also this one, which was an island, Infant Thule. So this as well could be Thule. I'm not sure. But the message he left was, have you heard of the Thule Society? And of course, didn't even pick it up. Didn't even say it. So thanks for that, Mickey. The Thule Society, right? Have you heard of them? If you haven't, let's have a quick look.
Among the various groups and organizations that populate the paranormal underground, the Thule Society are among the most sinister. The origins of the group stretch back to post-World War I Germany. Made up of occultists who originally intended the group to be a study of Germanic antiquity, it later morphed into an ideological cult that many cite as being the precursor of the Nazi Party. Members of the original group were rumored to include Rudolf Hess, Alfred Rosenberg, Hans Frank, Dietrich Eckart, among others. Walter Neuhaus, a wounded World War I veteran, started the study group in 1911. By 1918, the Society's influence spread across the underground, and after meeting Rudolf von Sabatendorf, they began a recruitment campaign to swell their ranks. Although the group's influence was later dismissed by the Third Reich, its ideas were incorporated into that regime. Following their dissolution in the 1930s, the Thule Society were suspected of being involved in many strange and peculiar myths over the 20th century, including the creation of Nazi UFOs, but was believed to be disbanded. After being hired by the Vatican to track down the 3 black grimoires of Pope Honorius III, Kana Cole discovers that the rumors of a revitalized Thule Society were true, although the current group is vastly different than its founders. The modern version of the Thule Society is not only comprised of Germans. Some members hail from other European countries, although the hierarchy remains decidedly Aryan and male. Most of the Brotherhood remains a secret, even to those deep inside the paranormal underground. Among those believed to be part of the group are Marcus Godolphin, a British billionaire, Timothy Luckless, a Swedish man whose family hid their German heritage after World War II, Theodore Kraus, one of the younger men in the group who lives off of a trust fund, and the only female of the group, Hannah Schmidt, widow of Eckhard Schmidt. All claim to have ties to the original bloodline of the society and desire to continue their ancestors' work. Another name associated with the society is Dieter Schneider, who has been linked to several assassinations of political and business leaders throughout Europe and Eastern Asia over the last 10 years. Although no official link has ever been established, it is widely believed he is a field agent for the Thule Society and in fact one of its senior members. During the events of the Reaping of the Black Grimoires, the Society are a major obstacle for Kana Cold's pursuit of the 3 grimoires, a prize that many in the Thule Society believe is their birthright.
Okay, so they're calling it Thule, the Americans. I've only heard it called the Thule Society, so that's what I'm going to keep calling it. Now here's a interesting article I found on Crystal Links. The Thule Society was a German occultist group in Munich, named after a mythical northern country from Greek legend. Okay, it's all northern, all pointing north, north, north. The origins was originally a German study group headed by Walter Neuhaus, a wounded World War I veteran turned art student from Berlin who had become a keeper of pedigrees for the Germanorden, or the Order of Teutons, a secret society founded in 1911 and formally named in the following year. So this is all, it's all occultist, all secret society, all, parasitic, intentional kind of stuff. Bit more here. It actually says up here as well that there's no evidence that Hitler was actually ever a part of the Thule Society, but they obviously had a ruling hand. It says, where is it? The society is notable chiefly as the organization that sponsored the Deutsche Arbeiterpartei, or the DAP, which later reorganized by Adolf Hitler into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazi Party. So they were the origins of the Nazi Party. So even if Hitler wasn't involved, they were pulling the strings. It's exactly what we've got now. Puppet politicians, puppet leaders, and in the background there are secret societies pulling the strings. A primary focus, this is their beliefs, the primary focus of the Thule Gesellschaft was a claim concerning the origins of the Aryan race. In 1917, people who wanted to join the Germanic order, out of which the Thule Society developed in 1918, had to sign a special blood declaration of faith concerning their lineage. The signer hereby swears to the best of their knowledge that the belief that there is no Jewish or coloured blood flowing through either his or his wife's veins or any of their ancestors. So this is obviously where eugenics and all this kind of stuff comes from, which we're seeing at the moment with Kill Bill. He's, his parents started Planned Parenthood USA, and, basically pushed for abortions to be legalized and all this kind of stuff. And obviously now we know what's going on, right? So this stuff, it's all linked. Now, this is the bit I wanted to read. I'll go from here. Thule was a land located by Greco-Roman geographers in the furthest north, often displayed as Iceland, but they don't know. The term Ultima Thule is also mentioned by the Roman poet Virgil in his pastoral poems called the Georgics. Although originally Thule was probably the name for Scandinavia, probably, right? Virgil simply uses it as a proverbial expression for the edge of the known world, and his mention should not be taken as a reference to Scandinavia. They identified Ultima Thule, this is the Thule Society, said by Nazi mystics to be the capital of ancient Hyperborea. There you go. As a lost ancient landmass in the extreme north near Greenland or Iceland. Now, we know where Hyperborea is, right? That's the North Pole. That's what it is. That's those 4 landmasses around the North Pole. That's Hyperborea. So there we go. Right there in black and white, guys. These ideas derive from earlier speculations by Ignatius L. Donnelly that a lost landmass had once existed in the Atlantic and that it was the home of the Aryan race, a theory he supported by reference to the distributions of swastika motifs. He identified this with Plato's Atlantis, a theory further developed by Helena Blavatsky, an occultist during the second part of the 19th century. You've probably all heard that name. And of course, on their sign here, we have a stylized swastika. Of course, the swastika is an ancient sign. As far as I can tell, it comes from Vedic origins, and it means wealth and good luck. But as everything in this world, they've changed the meaning of it. And this bit at the bottom too, where they suddenly go from Hyperborea to Atlantis, out in the Atlantic. So clearly, this is what they believed, that it was in Hyperborea, and some other guys come along, this Ignatius Donnelly, and go, oh no, they meant it was in the Atlantic. So this is what happens, guys. They just keep changing the stories, and everyone puts in their word, and you get all these, so-called academics who write all these books and that based on all their knowledge and their research, and they, in so many of them, they contradict what the actual people who witnessed or were experiencing the event said. It's just ridiculous. And obviously lots of it is done on purpose as well to subvert us from the truth and to keep things hidden. So I'll leave the link for this so you can have a read of the whole bit, but it's quite interesting. But quite obviously the Thule Society, what have we got here? We've got the Thule people that are said to have come from the northern regions. When they got down lower and they started mingling with people in Europe, they caught diseases and it killed a third of them. So they had to be isolated. So that sort of makes you think that they were not from here. They were obviously, separated from the, diseases and things in Europe for quite a while, that they lost all their immunity or they'd never been in contact with something. We have an island called Thule. No one knows where it is. We have a Thule Society. We have a Thule Air Force Base, US Air Force Base, way up at the top of Greenland. And then we have, last of all, a reference to Thule being a city in Hyperborea, which is the North Pole. So, lots going on here, guys. A lot more to look into, obviously, but this is just part one. I'll keep, well, it's actually part two, I guess. But I'll keep searching and see what I can find up on the North Pole. If you have any info for me too, leave it in the comments or send me a message on Facebook. Alright, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for spending some time with me. Have an amazing day, and I shall catch you on the next upload. Bye for now.